Good morning, everybody. I am Legislator Ellen Birnbaum, and it is my pleasure to welcome you today to a workshop where you can learn how to grieve your tax assessment. We've done this before live, and it's always my pleasure to see my constituents in person, but in this crazy world that we live in, this is the new normal over our computers, from our homes. So this morning, I have with me virtually members of the Nassau County Assessment Review Commission who will present a workshop on how to grieve your tax assessments. You can do this yourself. You don't need to hire an agency. If you have a problem and you think that your assessment is not what it should be, then you can do this. You can go online, look at comparable houses, and try to figure out if there is a reason why your assessment was what has been stated or it should be different. So I hope you find this to be very informative, and I do hope that in 2021 I will be able to see you in person. I think there's the light at the end of the tunnel and we're all coming out of this, and please stay healthy, stay safe, be smart, wear masks, social distance, you know it. I have very smart residents in this area who know the right thing to do. So please, without further ado, let us now join with members from the Nassau County Assessment Review Commission to learn how you can go online, do it from your home with your computer, and grieve your assessment. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Legislator Birnbaum. I'd like to begin by just saying my name is Nick, and I am a customer service representative with the Assessment Review Commission. And as Legislator Birnbaum mentioned, I'm here with you this morning to help you learn how to file a grievance online for free without the need to hire a company to do it for you. Before we begin the presentation, I want to remind everyone to take advantage of the Q&A feature of this online event. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A and we will address as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. Let's begin the presentation by looking at our first slide. This slide we have here is the homepage of the Assessment Review Commission, and you can visit it very easily by going to askarcnassau.com. And on this page, this is how you're going to be able to get to everywhere. This is how you're going to be able to get into Arrow to file. This is also has all of our frequently asked questions, our contact information, any forms, the calendar. You also see on this main page, we can't scroll right now, but if you scrolled at home, you could see that it has a how to appeal your assessment video right on the home page. So today, we're going to go into depth with everything, but the video is going to be a 6-minute shortened version of what we go over today. So if there's only one thing you forgot or you're unsure of, you can always reference the video, and that'll have a lot of helpful information for you. Now, before we get into the actual presentation, I just want to go over the calendar of ARC and go over the pacing for everything throughout the year. So what we'll do for that is we look on the right side of the screen, and there is a brochure that's listed in that contact area. It says ARC 2022-2023 brochure. And if you click on that, that'll take you to the brochure. Now on the left side, this is the brochure that we would normally give out at the meetings, but unfortunately, since we're doing everything online, you can just have it right here on your computer, so you can access it very easily. It has all your important links on the left side, and then in the middle, it has our calendar, and that's just what I want to go over briefly before we begin how to file. You can see that every year, ARC has a filing period. This is the time for you as a homeowner to submit your appeal. The appeal that you're submitting is challenging the value, your property's tentative value that was determined by the Department of Assessment. For this year, we're filing 2223 applications. Those 2223 applications, also known as appeals or grievances, are submitted by homeowners, or you could hire a company, but the whole point of this presentation is for the homeowner. You would submit them to ARC, and then after the filing period ends, the appraisers at ARC will review the applications and then send out responses to homeowners. Now, the responses from ARC can either be agreeing with the Department of Assessment's value or offering you a reduction in your property's assessed value. I want to make it clear that when you file a grievance, there is no possible way that your assessed value, your tentative assessed value, can increase. So when you file a grievance with ARC, there's no way ARC can return saying it should be higher. It would either remain the same or you can get a reduction. When you get your offer back, you can either say, I agree, thank you, and accept the offer, or you can also reject the offer and seek a second review. Those second reviews are not guaranteed due to time constraints and volume of them that we receive, but it's a way to keep your appeal going. So this is going to be your first step in trying to lower that 2223 appeal. So as I mentioned, it starts on January 4th, and I know on the top of this brochure, it says March 1st was the filing deadline, but if you look down at the bottom, it says the deadline has been extended to April 30th, and that is true. And we'll remind you throughout the presentation, almost every slide will have a reminder saying that it's been extended to April 30th. So rather than just having a couple weeks to get your appeal in, you now have 2 extra months. Even though it's been extended to April 30th, I still recommend that you try to get that in as soon as possible. The reason I say that is the sooner you get it in, the more comfort you have knowing that it's already submitted and finished. You do not have to worry about any problems with your computer that day or any life things that pop up. So I always say if you have 10 minutes, you can file. And we're going to show you today how easy it is to file, and it can take you as little as 10 minutes, even 5 minutes if you really go fast. But we're going to show you all the ins and outs of the appeal. So let's continue. We're back at the ARC homepage. So what we're looking at right now is a zoomed in version of the of the ARC homepage. And in order to file your appeal online, you're going to have to click on arrow, which is on the left side of the page. It is boxed out, and there's a yellow arrow pointing to it. When you click on arrow, it'll take you to the arrow homepage. And you'll see on the arrow homepage that it says, welcome to Arrow Assessment Review on the Web, and that's what Arrow stands for. It's an acronym for Assessment Review on the Web. Now on this page, you have a few options. If you already know your Arrow ID, you can already log in. However, if you've never been to this page and it's not familiar to you, you're going to have to register with Arrow. When you register with Arrow, you're just giving your contact information. So it's very easy to register with Arrow. You see on the left side of the page, there is a yellow arrow with a little box, and it's pointing to register with ARC. You click on that and it'll take you to the registration form. The registration form is just going to be your contact information. So it's very basic information, just your name, address. It's going to ask for your phone number, and that's a phone number for ARC to contact you. So if there's any issues with your appeal, we can contact you as quickly as we can using that phone number. Below that as well, we see that there is a question. What kind of correspondence would you like back from ARC? Since you're filing online, you're going to want to choose electronic. The reason I say that is when you file online, everything is done digitally online. So in the past, when you submitted your appeals and you submitted them by paper, you'd have to hope it got to the office. You could call for a receipt, and then when a response came, it would get mailed to you. Sometimes you'd be missing it for months and you had no idea where it was. Now we eliminate all of that extra stress by having just an online system where you get emails sent to you directly. This way, if there's an update on your appeal, you get an email sent to you. If there's an offer made on the appeal, you get an email sent to you. This way, you get live updates throughout the year on your appeals. Now, this is an incredible improvement. You don't have to worry on the post office if there's weather or anything. Maybe if you get a mail, you never You might see it and go, oh, this is junk mail. Now you know directly you get an online email sent to you directly. So when you confirm your information, you would click on complete registration. And when you click on complete registration, two things are going to happen. It's going to thank you for registering with ARC, and you can click there to continue. And what that does is it brings you back to the home page of Arrow. And now you know you're logged in because it says welcome to Arrow, assessment review on the web, and it shows your name. And today we're just using John Smith as an example. So throughout the whole presentation, you'll be seeing John Smith. Before we move on, I just wanted to say that when you're done using Arrow, just click on log out on the left side of the page. Now, the other thing that's going to happen when you register with ARC or with Arrow, you're going to get an email sent to you that's going to confirm that you've registered with Arrow. It's going to have your ID on there. This way, if you get to Arrow whenever and you go, oh, you know what, I'm kind of familiar with this, I don't remember, you can always search through your emails and then see, oh yeah, I did register with them last year, here's my Arrow ID, and you can go through that way. Now let's say you already have a login. What you would do is when you get to Arrow, you would click on login, which is on the left side of the page, and that'll bring you to the please log in to continue, and I'll just say enter user ID and password, and from there you would put your user ID and password. If you have any problems, such as you don't remember your user ID or you forgot your password, you can always contact ARC customer service. You might get me, you might get one of my associates, and we would be able to assist you. We can help you find your Arrow ID, or we can also help you reset your password after we ask a couple of security questions. Now, when you're logged in, let's say we go to the homepage logged in, and right now you see we're logged in because it says John Smith. And the first part of this presentation is we'll go over how to file an appeal using Sales Locator. Earlier in the presentation, Legislator Birnbaum referenced that you can find comps to attach to your appeal. And right now, Sales Locator is the way to find those comps. So this is a tool provided by the county. So you do not have to do your own research. However, we don't say you don't have to. You could do both because we are also going to show you later how to file an appeal without using Sales Locator. And that could be for someone who's on the rush, or if they need to do their own research and would rather not use Sales Locator. So Sales Locator is an interesting, fun tool. It helps find residential sales of 1, 2, or 3 family homes within the last 18 months of January 4th, 2021. Unfortunately, Sales Locator is not going to be compatible with condos or co-ops or commercial properties. However, if you have a residential 1, 2, or 3 family home, Sales Locator is going to be very helpful for you. So when you enter your address into Sales Locator will then bring up the sales from the last 18 months in your school district. And then after that, it will do adjustments on those sales that you select. So let's begin. We're at Sales Locator, and we have our property search bar. So the first part of Sales Locator is searching for your property. When you go to the property search bar, you're going to click number, write in your number, then write your street name, your city, and your zip code. When you click on search, it'll bring up all those properties. And when you find your property, you would just click on parcel ID to continue. Before we continue though, I just want to make sure you understand that when you're searching for your property in street name, you notice that it only says Christie. It does not say Christie Street or Christie ST. When you're searching for your own property, you're going to search your street name solely. You do not need to include the title of the street. So if you're on North Boulevard, you would just write North. If you're on Elm Street, you would just write Elm. If you're on Ralph Place, you would just write Ralph. Whatever the case may be, you're just going to write the name of your street. So when you After that, you find your parcel ID, you click on that, and you can continue. And what we'll bring you to next is just, this is very common on a lot of websites now. It's just a security question to make sure that you are a human filing and not an automated program, which would do applications without people's consent. So this is just your little test to prove that you're a human. What you do is you go to the little black box, you see the distorted letters in there, you type those letters into the text box and then click continue to continue on with the sales locator. With sales locator, the first step, once you find your property, is reviewing your property's information. So you'll see this top box, it says property information, has a picture of your home and some general information about the property, the type of home, it's a residential home, the school district it's in, if there's a village or not, the town, and if it's waterfront. It's just very general information. Now we're going to look to the right and down where it says assessment information 2022-23. And you'll see it has the filing period there. Now it says it ends on March 1st, but as you see on the top of our slide, the filing deadline has been extended April 30th. So do not be alarmed. It is April 30th is the filing deadline to submit your appeal. Now, as we're still looking in that assessment information box, if you look down, it says assessed value. And on the bottom where it says assessed value, you see our home 504 Christie is assessed at 461. So that's a value. It's going to be different for every property. And when you're filing on your own property, this is the value you're saying is too high and that you're challenging. So when we're looking for sales on the next page, we're going to be looking for homes that are similar to ours and have sold less than that 461. You want to find homes that have sold less than what you've been assessed at. And by doing that, you're proving that, oh, look, these homes, very similar to mine, they sold less than what I'm assessed at. I believe I should be lowered for these reasons. So it's a very helpful thing that they have that right there for you. So you can always write that down. Now, if we look to the left side of the screen, it says dwelling information. And let's just zoom in on that and we'll get a better idea of what's going on in there. So when we're looking at this dwelling information, you see it has the style of our home, the construction, year built, and it also has the square footage of the property, the number of bathrooms, and if there's a garage or basement. Now, if you're looking at these values and you see that any of them are incorrect, you can click on change values, and that'll bring you to the right side of the screen. And in our example, we only have 2 full bathrooms, but we're good, honest citizens of the county, and we're going to be honest with the system and say that we have 3 full bathrooms. You would click on apply changes, and that would then adjust your property's inventory. The reason you want to do that is when you're finding sales, this system is automatically going to do adjustments on the sales you choose. And the reason for that is it's trying to make a more fair evaluation of what your home should be assessed at. So if your home has 3 bathrooms, you try to want to compare it to another home with 3 bathrooms. So it's just trying to balance out the playing field between all the homes in the sales locator. So when you click on that, you click on apply changes, it's only going to work for sales locator. It's only a temporary change. In order to make any of the changes here permanent in the Nassau County databases, you're going to have to contact the Department of Assessment. Their number is 516-571-1500. We'll have that posted in the Q&A, so you don't have to worry about writing it down now. But when you call them, you're going to get a phone tree with a bunch of extensions. What you do is just listen and let the message play out all the way until the end. From my experience, I would find that that's the best way to try to get a hold of someone. If you do, excellent. If you don't, you can still leave a message and you can request for an inspector to come to your property. That inspector will come, review your property's inventory and can make changes. So if you see on this dwelling information, they listed you for having a half bath and you do not have a half bath, you can change it here for sales locator, but you're also going to have to call the Department of Assessment and request that they send an inspector to correct that information. Now that we understand how your inventory works and if you want to update it by calling the Department of Assessment, we're going to continue now to find sales. So you just click on find sales below dwelling information. So when you click on find sales, what's going to happen is you're going to get a list of sales. Now in our case, for our property 504 Christie, we have 2 pages worth of sales. Some properties you have 5 pages. Other properties you might only have 1 page, or you might have no sales that you want to use. That's okay. Sales locator is optional. You can still continue to submit an appeal even without using sales locator. So don't worry if nothing comes up or if you're unsatisfied with the sales that are presented to you. With that being said, as you see on this list, the top home is 504 Christie, which is our property. That's the subject property. And you see across, it shows you the property style and the square footage of the living area and the yard. Excuse me. So it's the living area and the yard square footage. When you're looking down, the property underneath that, the first sale, the reason it's the first sale is proximity. So that's how this order is listed. It's going to show you the closest sales to your properties first, and the further you go down the list, the further the property is away from you. What I recommend when you're looking for a comparable sale to use, you want to find a home that's as close to your property as possible. The reason for that is you're going to get a better idea of what your home might be assessed at when you select a home that's closer to you than if you're further away. So in our example, this first home underneath is less than 1/10 of a mile away from us. That's a great indicator of what your house might sell for. If it's a home on the same block as you and it's sold much less than what you've been assessed at, that's a great indicator of what your home might be valued at because you have a home on the same block. It might not make as much sense to compare your home to a home completely on the other side of your school district. There's going to be different factors on that other side if it's a few miles away. So the list is organized by proximity. And as you look down, it also has the sale price and the sale date. Both are very important. The more recent the sale, the better. The sales locator only brings back homes sold in the last 18 months. If you're going to do your research on your own, I recommend following those same guidelines. It wouldn't make sense to compare your home now to a home that sold 5 years ago. The market has changed drastically in 5 years. So the more recent the sale, the better. And of course, sale price matters as well because you want to be comparing your home to, you're trying to prove that your home has been overassessed. So you want to find homes that have been assessed less than your assessed value. So our home 504 Christie was assessed at $461. So when we're looking through the sale price, we're going to see if we see a home that's less than that 461, and then we'll look to the right to see if other things match up as well. So let's do that now. As you look to the right, so we are looking at the sale price, then the sale date, and then the style. 504 Christie is a cape, and we're going to want to try to compare it to other capes. The reason for this is the same reason for proximity. You're always going to want to try to compare your home to a home of similar style. So you'd want to compare a cape to a cape, a ranch to a ranch, split to a split. You wouldn't, if you had this giant mansion, you wouldn't want to compare it to a bungalow. That wouldn't be a fair valuation of your property's value. So we have the style there. You want to try to get a home as the same style as yours, as similar as possible. And then when you look to the right, you have the square footage, both the living space and the lot size. And of course, you want to find homes with similar lot sizes and space as yours. When you select your properties, you would just go to those little white boxes, click on them, and you see a little check mark comes up. We've only selected 3 in our example. However, if you're at home and you see more than that, you can select up to 5 properties. Additionally, you don't need to select 5 or 3. You can select 1, 2, 4, or you can select none. Remember, this whole part is optional. However, it's here to help you as a homeowner. Now that we've selected our properties, let's continue by clicking that button on the bottom of the page. And now we're brought to our adjustments table. What you'll see is a list of the property's inventories, and then you'll see that there are adjustments made to them. If we looked all the way to the left, our subject home is there, 504 Christie. And now if you look down, it shows you all the information, and it also shows price. So it shows you the date the home was sold and its sale price at that time. Below that, you'll see that the line says time adjustment. So that is just going to adjust the sale prices to factor in the markets at that time. So like I said, if the home was sold, the more recent the sale, the less of adjustment there will be. But if the home was sold further in the past, there might be a higher adjustment on that value. The reason we're doing these adjustments is to be more fair to you and more fair and understand what the market actually looks like in your area. As we look down, we see adjustments now to the inventory. Now, this happens automatically. You don't have to do anything for this, but you'll see in our subject home, everything is 0. And then when you look to the right, there are adjustments made. And like I said, those adjustments are made to give you a better estimate and to give you a fair idea of what your home might be valued at. So for example, you see our property has 2 full bathrooms, but the first sale only has 1 full bathroom. So what we do to give you a better idea of what their value might be if it was your home, we add $10,000 to that value, saying that a bathroom in this school district is worth $10,000. In your neighborhood, it might be a different value. These values, like I said, they're estimates, and we're just giving an estimation saying that a bathroom in this district is around $10,000. Like I said, it could be different in other districts. And the opposite is true as well. You see our house, 504 Christie, does not have a half bathroom. But if you look at sale 2 and 3, it does have a half bathroom. So what we do is we minus value from their property because they have something our property does not. So what this does is balancing the scales to try to make things as level as possible. Now, when we first got to this page, I said to look at that price at the top where it shows you your sale date and the sale price. Now, if you look at the bottom where it says adjusted price, those prices are different. Those adjustments are going to be different than what the original sale price was because it's making those adjustments. It's making inventory adjustments. It's making time adjustments. And it's all doing this to give you a better idea of what your home might be valued at. So now that we have that information there, we understand what's going on, we'll click on continue to get to the next part of Sales Locator. When you click on continue from that last page, you are brought to this disclaimer. This disclaimer is there to confirm with you that the information from Sales Locator is just that. It's information. It is not the opinion of ARC, and it's not an appraisal, and it is also not going to guarantee that this is what your home's assessed value will be. It's just there for information, for you to understand and see the numbers of what homes are selling for in your information. Unless you're grieving taxes, you might not be up to date on what homes are selling for in your neighborhood. So it's good information for you for that. And it's also good for evidence. So if you find a few homes that you really like and think they're overassessed or is going to help prove that you're overassessed, it's going to add them to your appeal. So it's all helpful for you, but you just understand it's only information. So when you understand that, you click on agree and proceed, and then it takes you to the results for selected sales table. What this table does is it shows you the weighted adjusted sale price and the average adjusted sale prices of the homes we've selected. So the average adjusted sale price, those are adjusteds averaged together, comes to $477, and our taxable market value is $461. That's what we've been assessed at by the Department of Assessment. In this case, you might be shocked. You might go, oh, I can't believe that the Department of Assessment assessed me correctly. Maybe I won't file an appeal. That is totally okay. From there, you don't have to file. However, you're here because you do believe you're overassessed. So of course, you might want to continue to submit an appeal. Just because the average adjusted sale price is higher than what you were assessed at, you can still file an appeal. That does not hold any weight against you. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, there is no way that filing a grievance can increase your property's assessed value. So we see that this is higher than ours. We can make changes at the appeal. We're going to continue to submit an appeal anyway. So we'll click on continue to submit an appeal. And that's going to bring us to the actual appeal page. Now you won't see anything at first besides one question that says, what is the type of property? Since we're challenging our home's assessed value, we're going to click on AR1, and that is the application for correction of property tax assessment for a 1, 2, or 3 family home. When you click on that, the rest of the appeal is going to show, and you'll notice that Part A, Part B, and Part E are automatically filled in, and it takes information from Sales Locator. So all the information we put in there is automatically populated to A, B, and E, and from there we can still make adjustments on our own. So if we continue to the appeal, we'll go over each part and show you that you can still make changes. Oh, excuse me, before we go into the appeal, I just want to go over, we have these little icons next to every question. They have a little question mark in them and they're blue. That's there to help you. If you are unsure of what the question is asking, you just roll your mouse over that icon and then a little text box will come up with a description of what the question is looking for. So that's just there to help you in case you forget what was the point of this question. Now we can move on to the appeal. Okay, so we'll start at Part A. And since we use Sales Locator, our parcel ID is automatically entered into Part A and a picture of our home is up. From there, we can look at the first question, which is taxpayer applicant's full name. Today, we're filing as John Smith, so we write our name in there. The second question is property owners, if the taxpayer is not the sole owner. This is an optional question. If you're the sole owner, you can skip this question. However, if you own the home with someone else, such as your spouse, you might want to put their name there as well. The reasoning for that is if they were to call our customer service and had questions about the appeal, our customer service could not disclose information to them. It was for security reasons. It's there to help protect your identity and protect your appeal. So we would not be able to disclose any information to them. So if you just include your spouse's name there, or if there's any other owners, include their name there. This is going to help you and cause, it's going to make things a lot smoother for everyone. So it's going to assist us with knowing who we can disclose information to. And below that is required. It says form, and this is just listing the ownership of the home. So for right now, we're an individual. We're the owners of the home. As I said before, if you're not the sole owner, but you own it with just your spouse or with someone else, and it's your property, you would still write individual because it's still solely your property. As you see there, the other options are trust, partnership, association. Those are applicable. Choose those. I know there are people who have their homes in trust, so you could choose that as the ownership. But just for this example, we're just John Smith, we're the individual, and that's what we're going to click on. So now we'll continue to Part B. Now, Part B is the owner's estimate of the full market value. As you see here, the number, that average adjusted sale price from Sales Locator, is automatically entered into this first part where you're saying your estimate of the value should be. Now, just because it's there and we were assessed at 461, it would be in our best interest to lower that number, and you can do that. These values are not set in stone. So you have an issue with what the values that have been brought in from Sales Locator are, you can always adjust those. But this line, this is the line where you're saying, I believe my home's overassessed and this is what I think it should be. So it's a very important part of the appeal. Underneath that, the question is this property offered for sale or under contract. For a majority of you people, it's going to be no. So you would just go to the little arrow drop-down box and click on no. However, if the property is offered for sale, you would click on that drop-down box, select yes, and then write the price of the property, if the listing or the contract, there. Once you've done that, after we submit the appeal, you can add attachments. And we're going to go over attachments later, but I just want to confirm that you cannot submit any attachments until you've already filed your application. That being said, let's move on to Part C. So Part C is contact information and representation. Since you're filing online through Arrow, you're representing yourself because you're not hiring anyone else to file for you. And the contact information is taken directly from your Arrow account. So whatever email you put in your Arrow account when you registered, that's where your contact information is going to go. Same thing with your phone number and mailing address. So whatever information from your Arrow account is right there for contact information. Let's move on to Part D. Part D is optional. Depending on your browser, it might be hidden. So in order to display it, you would just click on that little display button above Part D, and then you'll open up to the full part, which we see on the right side of the screen. Now, Part D is property information. It's optional. You can fill in as little as you'd like or as much as you'd like. However, I say that this part is great as it's a great section for you to include unique features about your house that you think warrant reductions. So this is really going to be your voice of the application. This is where you can add all of the things about your property that you think would deter someone from buying it or that would lower your property's assessed value. So as we go through Part D, I'm going to briefly skim through it because it's just a lot of informational questions that you can read on your own. It's very obvious where it's like fill in the number of kitchens. It's a very clear answer. Is this house used for business or renting? It's all very self-explanatory. However, what I want to focus on is the last question where it says, are any of these adjacent to or visible to the house? This is an important section. This is going to give the appraisers a better idea of what your property is like. I want to remind you, when you file a grievance, the appraisers that are review your property's assessed value all from a computer. They do not come to the property to inspect it solely. So this is your opportunity to write something about your property that someone might not be able to get from a computer. For example, the first one we have there is waterfront. So if waterfront is visible from your home and you believe that it's something that should lower your property's assessed value, you would click on waterfront, and then in other facts, that text box below, you would write what about waterfront property is a deterrent or something that you think devalues your home. So for example, if you lived on the North Shore, you might not click waterfront because your waterfront is beautiful. You have great views, you have your boat in the backyard, it's gorgeous. However, if you're on the South Shore, waterfront might be detrimental to you. You might get more frequent flooding, it might ruin your lawns. There might be a whole number of reasons. So you just want to remember when you click on one of these options here, you want to make sure it's a deterrent and a devaluation of your property. So if we looked below as well, we see that it also says railroad. Now, if there's a railroad in your backyard, however, you use the railroad every day to commute, it's not really going to be a reason why you would ever say it would devalue your home. However, if you are not using the railroad and the railroad goes through your backyard all hours of the day, all hours of the night, shakes up your house, also shines light in your house at night, you can say that that is a reason why you believe your home should be devalued. So you just click on railroad and other facts, type everything about the railroad that you think devalues your home's property assessed value. And you can go along through each one and write those things. So it says park. Parks might be lovely. However, parks also tend to be a place where kids might hang out at night. They're up all hours of the night. Maybe they're drinking in the park, or who knows what's going on. That's something you can write there. So if you selected park, you want to write in other facts. The reason the park is devaluing my home is because I have to clean up beer bottles every morning. Whatever the case may be, that's where you would include it. And now we only give you a couple options there. However, you do see there's a blank option that says other. If you click on other, just write the other thing that hasn't been listed there that you think devalues your home. So in other, some examples might be a vacant lot, or what people call a zombie home, so an abandoned home, like a derelict property. Maybe a church, a school, cemetery, a sump, whatever it is that is unique to your property and that's visible from that you would say deters your property. So if you wrote in sump there and other facts, you might write, I don't like having the sump across the street from me because it's a haven for raccoons and they get into my garbage in the morning. Whatever the case may be, you would write it there. Before we continue to the next slide, I also want to confirm that this other facts text box is limited. So you cannot write, I don't know what the number of characters it is, but I do know it cuts you off after a certain amount of characters. So you cannot write all your information. If that's the case for you, what you can do is you can go onto your computer, go into Microsoft Word or into Google Docs or however you write your text files, and then you can write and be as descriptive as you can about your property's information. So let's say if you had waterfront, a park, a sump, and the railroad all by you, and you can't fit that all in other facts, you would go to Microsoft Word or Google Docs, wherever it is, and then just write bullet points of everything about your property that is unique to you, that does not affect every home in the area, and that it's reasons why you believe you've been overassessed because these factors have not been taken into account. So your Word document could be as long as you need. As I said, always make sure it's relevant to why you believe your home should be valued less. These are just information about your property. You could always write on that Word document and attach it, and it can be as long as you want. And as I said before, we'll go over attachments once we submit our appeal. I just want to let you know that if you cannot fit everything there, or you want to be more descriptive, or you have any other information, you can always write it in a Word document and attach it afterwards. We'll move on to Part E now. So Part E is also optional. It's recent sales of similar homes, but since we use Sales Locator, the homes we've selected are automatically plugged into the appeal. You don't have to do any extra typing. So you'll see you have the homes you've selected, the sale price, the sale date, and you also have a comments bar. You can write any comments about the properties there. It is optional, so you don't have to do that. But if you know something specific about the property, that it's different than your property, you can include it there as well. Let's say if they have central air and they have an in-ground swimming pool and they sold less than what you're assessed at, you can write there, I've been assessed higher than this home, and they also have these other amenities that I don't have. But that, like I said, that's optional. Now, as you move down in this section, you'll see that there is a blank bar at the bottom. That is for you. If you find other sales or do your own research, you can attach them there directly. So you can do it manually, and you can attach as many homes as you'd like. So if you use Sales Locator, then you went on Zillow, and then you contacted your realtor, or whatever the case may be, if you find sales, you can add as many as you want from there. In order to do that, you would just click on the magnifying glass, search for the property. When you find the property's parcel ID, you would click on that and it would fill in the property's address and parcel ID. And what you would just have to do is write the sale date, sale price, and the comments. You would want to write your source. So like I said, if you got it from Zillow.com, you would just write Zillow there. And you can do that for as many properties as you'd like. Moving forward now onto Part F. Part F is the last part of the application. So as you can see already, we're at the last part, and it hasn't been that long of a time. I've really been explaining everything, but when you go back and do this on your own, you're going to see that it's a very quick and fair process to you. But let's continue. Now, Part F is going to be the statement of claim and certification. So what this section is just saying that you understand that everything you're saying on here is your true to the best of your knowledge. So you see, we have that security question there just to make sure you're a human and not an automated section. And then underneath there, it says signatory certification, and it is you click on the drop down and you would just click on owner of record if you're filing for your own property and you're owning this appeal. That serves as your electronic signature. So it's by clicking on that, you're saying you believe everything on this is true to the best of your knowledge, and then you could submit the appeal and then you're done. But let's just say you submit the appeal and you had some errors. What would happen is that the appeal would tell you the errors you made. So it would say errors found in Part A, errors found in Part B, wherever the errors are made. And then when you look in those parts, it is redded out. So the line that you missed or there's an error in would be in red. This is a really neat function that's only available if you file online. All of the changes, or excuse me, all the errors are told to you immediately. If you did this by paper, you'd have to mail it into ARC. ARC would have to review it. Then if they see there's an error, we'd have to contact you. And then who knows how long that time could take. Then maybe there's some miscommunication along the way. There's just a lot more factors where when you do it online, it shows you immediately, you made an error here. This is exactly what you have to fix. And you can just fix it right there and resubmit the appeal successfully. So it's a very neat tool, especially for someone who might be uncomfortable with computers. This thing really guides you and makes sure you submit an appeal with all the possible information. When you fill in those errors, you can submit the appeal again. And when you submit the appeal, two things will happen. You'll see this line at the top that says your appeal has been submitted with application number such and such. And then you have a few options, and that's what we'll go over next. But so it'll tell you your application number at the top of the page. And you'll also receive an email that serves as a receipt for your appeal. So this way, you know, you have it for your records that you submitted an appeal on February 11th. And this is your application number and the appeal number and your parcel ID. So it just serves as a receipt and proof that you submitted your appeal, and it's sent to you automatically. You do not have to do any extra work. Whereas if you did it on paper, you'd have to call, request a receipt. Might take a few days, might be a process. This is all done instantly, just like that. It's just another advantage of filing online. Now, as I said, we would go over those other options, and those options, after it says your appeal has been submitted with application number, is attachments. And I've said it a few times during the presentation, but attachments can only be added after you've submitted your appeal. So now at this point, we've submitted our appeal, and we could view or add attachments. So we have this file we want to attach. We just click on view or add attachments. It'll bring us to our first page where it says application document attachments. We don't have any attachments yet, so let's just click on yes. And it'll take us to the next page where you'll upload a document. And it's very simple, it's very self-explanatory. You see it says file to submit. You would click on that choose file button. When you do that, your file explorer on your computer will come up. And you would just search through your computer's files to figure out the file you want to attach. So if you wrote that Word document, you can find that Word document on your computer, double click it, and then that's now going to be set up for the next part. In our example right now, we have this test.pdf file. So we click on our test.pdf file, and then underneath file to submit, it says type of file, or excuse me, type of document. Our test.pdf file is a legal doc. However, if you use a Word document, you could look on the type of document and then see which one works best. If it's property information, if it's photos, if it's a map, an appraisal. Like I said, if your home is offered for sale, it could be your listing. Whatever the case may be, you would select whatever's applicable to the type of file from there. This way it's clear as day, so when the appraisers are reviewing it, they have an idea of why this was attached. When you click on that, you would just click on Submit Attachment. And now you see at the Application Documents Attachments page, Our test.pdf file, which is a legal document, has been attached to the appeal. It's great. It's very simple. You have a couple options from here. You can upload another document. So just like the amount of sales you can add as many sales as you want. You can add as many documents as you want. So you have multiple photos, you have an appraisal, you have a police report about the park's activities, whatever the case may be, you can get all of that information and attach it to your appeal up until the filing deadline of April 30th. I say that because in the event that you need to add attachments or delete any attachments from your application, and it's after the filing period, you will not be able to do it through Arrow. You are going to have to mail those documents to ARC directly and just make it to the attention of the residential supervisor. Don't worry about writing this information down now. We'll have it in the Q&A. And you'll also have ARC's address at the end of the presentation, so you don't have to worry about writing that down. Just want to make sure you understand. If it's after April 30th, you're not going to be able to use Arrow to make any changes to your appeal or to add any attachments. Great, so once we have our attachments there, we would click on Return to Appeal Form. And now you look, we have our completed application ready for ARC to review. It shows our appeal number, and you also see in Part A under Status on the right side of the screen, in green lettering, it says Received. That's how you know it's received by ARC. It might say received for months. Received just means that ARC has your appeal and it's going to be under review or it's pending until it changes. But that status received is a good thing. That means ARC has it in their system and it will be reviewed before March 31st of 2022. And now we've successfully submitted an appeal using Sales Locator. As you saw, it took us less than an hour, and I was explaining everything in great detail. So when you go home and you're filing, it's going to be a lot faster. And it was a relatively painless process. We didn't have to go into an encyclopedia or do any other extra jumping through hoops. It's all here for you, and it does help because it has guidelines. We have these little icons which explain the questions for you, and if you make any errors, it helps you. Now, since we filed with using Sales Locator, I also want to go over how to file without using Sales Locator. Filing without Sales Locator is the same application as if you file with Sales Locator, and that's important to note because I also want to confirm that if you hire a tax reduction service, they use the same application as you. There is no difference in the applications. So across the board, anyone who files is going to file with that same AR1. And furthermore, the appraisers at ARC are blind to as who are filing. When they're reviewing properties, they're reviewing the property's assessed value slowly, and they're reviewing the application's information. They are not seeing who filed, and there is no favoritism involved. And these are all just pure numbers, so you get the fairest idea of what your home's value should be reduced to. So I know that comes up a lot. People assume that sometimes the reps are better, they advertise they're better. Of course, they're going to advertise they're better. They're businesses. But however, as someone who works for ARC, I can tell you that you're going to know your property better than anyone else. And you've seen this presentation. We're going to go over the application again. And I'm confident that you are going to be able to successfully submit an appeal with the best information regarding your property. That being said, let's continue to file an appeal without using Sales Locator. You have two options. On the left side of the screen, we have the number 1 there. It says File an Appeal. You can click there, or you can click on the middle down part of the screen where it says File an Appeal Online. If you click on either, it'll take you to the application. So, and now we're directly at the application. We skip through Sales Locator. Because we skip through Sales Locator, the application is going to be blank when we select it. So when we go to type of property and we click on AR1 for our residential 1, 2, or 3 family home, we'll see that Part A is blank. So let's fill in Part A. We'll take a closer look at it. And we'll see in Part A, excuse me, sorry. And just like when you use Sales Locator, it is, you're going to put in your address, and when you get to your just you're on Gary Way, you would just write Gary, whatever the case may be for you. You're just going to write your street name. Find your parcel ID, and when you click on that, Part A will then be filled out. You'll see that your parcel ID has been entered and that a picture of your home is now on the application. You still have to write out your applicant's name, so you still write your name in there. And like I said, property owners, if you want to include your spouse's name on there, or if there's any other owners, you can write them there. And same with the form. You're going to want to write you're the individual, this is your property. Not that you have to write individuals, whatever is applicable to you. You would write that and just say that's the type of the ownership of the property. Moving on to Part B now. Now, because we did not use sales locator, there is no value in Part B. So for that first question where it says applicant estimates and request the assessment to be reduced based on the full market value of, that's where you're going to write what you believe your home should be assessed at. So 504 Christie, that's our property. Remember, it was assessed at 461. You just want to write a value in there that's less than 461, and that's saying that I believe that the home should be valued at this. And the same question below that is the property offered for sale? You know what to do here. If it's no, just write no. If it is offered for sale, say yes, write in the sale date, or excuse me, the sale price, and you can add the listing or contract after you've submitted the appeal. Now, when we go to Part C is going to be the only part that's completely the same as far as being filled out, and that's because it's just using your Arrow information. So it's going to take your contact information from your Arrow account and then just automatically plug it into the appeal, so you don't have to do anything here. Moving on to Part D. Part D, I don't want to spend too much time on it again because it's the same section. So same as if you use sales locator as without sales locator, it's going to access same property information and it's still going to be optional. So you just go in there and click on everything that's applicable to you, or you can totally skip this part. It's totally up to you. Moving on to Part E. Part E is the recent sales of similar homes, and it's blank now because you hadn't used sales locator. Nothing is going to be entered in there. You can skip this part, or if you believe that, or if you did some research, you can enter the homes that you've researched in here manually. We've gone over how to enter homes before, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. I just want to remind you that if you do your own research in your comments, please write your source of where you got the sale. This way ARC can verify the validity of these claims. Continuing now to Part F. So Part F is the same thing where it's another security question just to make sure you're a human and not an automated system. And then you're also going to write that you're the owner of the record, thus stating that this appeal is yours, it's my property, and it serves as your signature. So what you're saying is that all the information on this appeal is true to the best of your knowledge. And from there, you can submit the application form. And just like if you made errors using sales locator, any errors will be told to you very clearly with those red bars in the sections you missed. So just wanted to show you that there is no discriminatory. If you use then the sales locator, or if you don't use sales locator, either way, this online application is going to tell you if any errors have been made. So now we're going to submit our appeal successfully. And you get that little note at the top. It says your appeal has been submitted with application number such and such. And then you also get the email sent to you with a receipt of the appeal. And then that's how you would file an appeal without using sales locator. As you see, it was very quick. We did in like less than 5 minutes. So this is to help you and so to give you confidence that you can do this on your own, definitely. So now at this point in the presentation, we've gone over submitting an appeal with using sales locator and without using sales locator. And now we're going to go over how to make changes to your appeal throughout the filing deadline. So let's say you filed your application today. It's February 11th, And then in March, something happens where you're like, you know what, I actually want to change my appeal. Very easy to do so online. So how you would edit your appeal is you would get to Arrow, you would log in, and you could see right now that we're logged in because it says, welcome to Arrow, assessment review on the web, John Smith, so you know you're logged in. And then you would click on appeal filing status change, which is on the left side of the page. You have a little yellow arrow pointing to it. When you click on that, it'll take you to the list of your appeals. And we see here, our appeal is there for the tax year 22-23. And you also see number of docs as 1. So it keeps record of the amount of documents you have attached to your appeal. We attach that one test file and we know it's definitely there. Now, when we click on application number, it's going to show you your whole appeal. But for the sake of the presentation, we're just going to zoom in on part B. So if you were to click on that application number there, it would show you the whole appeal. We're only looking at part B. Remember, when we first filed with Sales Locator, we kept that number the same. Now let's pretend it's March and we think that value was too high. And what we're going to do now is going to change that value. So we went in there, we changed it from that 476 to 460. And in order to make that change permanent on your appeal, you would just click on Submit Changes, which is the button to the right side of the page. If you were at home doing this, you would see that in every part in that blue line where it says Part B or Part A, whatever the information is, if you look right across, you'll see a button that says Submit Changes. So if you make a change in any one of those sections, the only way to submit changes to your appeal is by clicking on Submit Changes. You do not need to resubmit the application. So just want to make sure you understand, Submit Changes is the way to change the appeal. So now that we've made changes to the appeal, there's a few other things we can do as well. We can also add more documents, or we can delete documents. And it works the same. So when you get to your appeal, the same idea, you're logged into Arrow, you went to Appeal Status Filing Change, you clicked on your property's application number, and you're looking at your appeal, and right above Part A, it's going to have this button that says ARC Communications and Attachments. And when you click on that, it'll take you to that application document attachments page. And from there, you can add a new document, or you can delete the existing document in case you added it by mistake. I just want to go over all this to let you know that you can make changes to your application up until April 30th at midnight. You can do it all online, either making changes to each individual section of the application, or by making changes by adding or deleting documents that you use as attachments of supporting evidence. This brings us to the last part of the presentation. It is withdrawing your appeal. If you need to withdraw your appeal for whatever reason, you can do it online as well. What you would do is log into Arrow, go to the Appeal Filing Status Change. When you see your property, you would just click on the application number, and then when in Part A, right underneath where it says Parcel ID, right by your picture, it says Withdraw Appeal. You would just click on that button, and a pop-up should come up with information regarding withdrawal of the appeal. If a pop-up does not come up, just go into your browser settings and just allow pop-ups just this once for this page. So just turn off your pop-up blocker, click it again. A little window will come up explaining explicitly what withdrawing your appeal means. And what withdrawing your appeal means is that you are taking back your appeal, and ARC will not review your property's assessed value for that tax year. When you understand that, you click on the little agreement button and then click on agree. And what will happen is you'll get a notice at the top of your application, so the application was successfully withdrawn. And then you'll see the status, those green letterings has changed from received to withdrawn. And now you know your application has been withdrawn successfully. At this point in the presentation, we've gone over ARC's homepage, then how that we have a video on ARC's homepage that explains everything that I've gone over today. It's a 6-minute video. We've also gone over how to register with Arrow, how to retrieve your Arrow information in case you need a password reset, how to log into Arrow. And then once logged in, we went over how to file an appeal using Sales Locator, without using Sales Locator. Then we went over how to make changes to your appeal throughout the filing period, how to add attachments, how to remove attachments, and how to withdraw appeals. If you have any questions about anything during this, we're going to help you out. But before we get to the questions, I also want to leave our last slide up, which has our important information. As I mentioned, we have our website up there and our customer service phone number and email. Please do not hesitate to contact us. We'll be able to help you out to the best of our abilities. And I also just want to leave up on here that the deadline has been extended to April 30th. At this point in the presentation, we are going to review the questions, and just give me a minute to go over the questions and answers. And I also want to then pass the microphone over to the ARC Vice Chairperson, Jeremy May.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Nick. Thank you for the presentation. As Nick just mentioned, I am Jeremy May, the Vice Chairperson of the Assessment Review Commission, and I wanted to join Nick during our Q&A session to make sure that we get to absolutely every one of your questions that we can answer, and that we offer the broadest perspective possible to get you the most complete answers that we can. Thank you, Nick, very much. Take a well-deserved drink of water after talking for just over an hour. And I'm sure Nick will be able to jump in and assist me as we go through your questions. So one of the questions that I saw recurring in the feed was, why engage in this process? What is the benefit of filing an application with the Assessment Review Commission? So in Nassau County, we have an annual assessment system. Our Department of Assessment is tasked with the responsibility of setting a assessed value for every property in Nassau County at the beginning of every January, and that assessed value is one of the factors used to ultimately calculate property taxes. So it's a hot issue in Nassau County. Many people are concerned about property taxes and the assessment system. What I can say is that it is ARC's recommendation that you review that annual assessment published by the Department of Assessment, and you ask yourself the question if you agree with it or you disagree with it. If you disagree with the Department of Assessment, you think that they have valued your property too high, you should seriously consider filing an appeal with the Assessment Review Commission, because this is essentially your only avenue for getting an overassessment reduced. You want your assessed value to be accurate, because that is going to result in you paying a fair share of property taxes. If you found that you were overassessed and you did not file an appeal with the Assessment Review Commission, you are running a significant risk that you are paying more in property taxes than you are obligated to or responsible for. So why engage in this process? We recommend that you engage in the process to the extent that you make your own decision about whether you are overassessed or not. And if you feel that you are overassessed, that you should seriously recommend filing an application. And that moves on to a question about what to put in the application, especially when it comes to comparable sales. So when you're trying to choose comparable sales, you want to choose properties that are the most similar to your own. It's going to be rare to have something that's a 100% match, but the more similar a property is to your own, the closer it is to your own home, and the closer point in time to this January that property sold, the stronger evidence of value it's going to be for your own property. The further away that you get from your own home, the farther away in time a sale occurs, the less similar the property is in gross living area, lot size, features like garage size, in-ground pools, attics, basements. You know, the less similar a property is to your own, the less useful a sale for that other property would be in proving value of your own property. So it's a game of trying to find, you know, the apples that most resemble your own apple. You certainly don't want to be comparing to any oranges, though. There are some rarer circumstances that finding comparable sales is harder. In that case, you still want to stick with the sales that are the most comparable to your own that you can find. One other little caveat that I can mention with proximity, you want to stay within your own school district as much as possible. If you happen to live at the border of your school district and 2 houses to the east is a different school district, you probably wouldn't want to use a sale of that house in comparison to a sale of a house within your own school district. 2 different school districts are going to mean 2 different school district budgets. That's going to probably mean 2 different tax rates. And no 2 school districts are alike, so you are more served by picking homes within your own school district than a home that is outside of your school district. Okay, we had some questions about the logistics and timing of ARC's process. So the question is, if you appeal at ARC and you get a reduction, how does the town get notified of that reduction? So ARC operates pretty far in advance of when a tax bill is issued. We are currently in our filing period for the 22-23 tax year. So those tax bills are not issued for the first time until October of 2022. So we at ARC are going to be done with our review period by March 31st, 2022, which is about half a year before tax bills are ever issued. So the Assessment Review Commission does not directly contact the town to tell them about the results of your appeal. What we do is we issue final determinations that you'll receive a copy of, and we inform Nassau County's Department of Assessment by March 31st, 2022. And they take that data and they update it to the 22-23 final roll publication on April 1st, 2022. So at that time, if you and ARC agree, your value is updated, the assessment roll has your value, and then the towns and the county is informed of the assessment roll for that year, and they levy their taxes based on that, and then you don't have to do anything else. It's a different timing and logistical process if you disagree with ARC and you end up filing a SCAR appeal or something to that nature. In that circumstance, if a tax bill is issued while you are still disagreeing about your assessment and you are still pursuing a SCAR appeal, then if you are ultimately successful on that SCAR appeal, the Nassau County Treasurer would issue you a refund check to get you to the taxes that you should have paid based on that updated assessment. But as far as ARC itself, if you agree with ARC's process is done so far in advance of a tax bill being issued that your tax bill should be correct when you first get it, so there is no refund to issue. We had a question about condos and co-ops in the sales locator. At this time, the sales locator does not support sales for condos or co-ops. It's only for 1, 2, or 3 family homes. That is something that we are looking into, but for now, those types of properties are not included. We can recommend that some other resources that you might try and find to help you locate sales for condos or co-ops are realty websites like similar to Zillow. You may also consider Googling for a local realtor in your area. Local realtors are usually happy to assist property owners to find comparable sales because they hope that if the time comes that you sell your own property, you may remember that they helped you out and think favorably of them and be willing to retain their services at that time. So the sales locator is not the end of the research process. It is one tool. I think it's a very helpful tool. But unfortunately, it does not fit every circumstance. So in those circumstances that it does not fit, we recommend that you don't stop your research, but you expand to use some of those other tools that we suggested, or perhaps a tool that you'll think of that we didn't necessarily know to suggest to you. Okay. So when you're filing an appeal with the Assessment Review Commission, you are attempting to make your best case that your property is overassessed. And some of the strongest evidence that you can give us to that effect would be comparable sales of properties similar to your own that sold relatively recently and are relatively close to your own property. That's not the only type of evidence you can submit, and it is not strictly necessary to submit comparable sales to have a successful appeal. We've mentioned Part D. So even if the market sales in your area does not necessarily support a case for an assessment reduction, perhaps there are some contextual factors that do, whether that be, you're in a flood zone, whether that be there was another recent natural disaster and homes in the area are damaged, whether that be that there is just some neighborhood factor that is not necessarily attractive to a prospective buyer. Let us know about that in Part D, and our appraisal team is qualified to take those factors into account and render a determination as to the value. So you don't need to, the appeal is not a quiz that you can fail. The idea of the appeal is for the applicant to make their best case that their property is overassessed. So one should not concern themselves if they can't submit any one type of evidence. It's my recommendation that you give us all of the information that you find relevant to your case that your property is overassessed, and our team will do their due diligence in reviewing all of your information. Okay, we have a question about the timing of grievances and approvals of a previous year and the newest assessment. So as I mentioned, the Department of Assessment publishes a new value at the beginning of every January. The Assessment Review Commission finishes its review period at the end of every March. So it can be the case that the Department of Assessment has to publish a new value before the Assessment Review Commission updates them on the status of the previous year's appeal. In that circumstance, they have to go with the information that they have at the time, but in between January and April, they will get that updated information from the Assessment Review Commission, and they can take that into account for their final rule publication on April 1st. That being said, this is still an annual assessment, and the annual assessment is based on what the Department of Assessment publishes at the beginning of January. It's ARC's recommendation that you review that January publication and ask yourself, do you agree or you disagree with it? If you disagree with it, you would want to seriously consider filing an appeal, because if you don't file an appeal and then April 1st rolls around and you disagree with what the Department of Assessment has done, typically you would not have time to file an appeal. This particular year, that's less of a concern because ARC's application period has been extended to April 30th. Again, we don't recommend that you wait that long. If you're planning to file an appeal, it's better to do so as soon as possible so you have that peace of mind and get it out of the way, and ARC can begin working on the substance of the appeals sooner. Okay, we had a couple of folks that were interested in perhaps reviewing this video again while they were actually doing their applications. We are recording the session, and we can certainly work with Legislator Birnbaum to have that hosted on her website. But as a resource to use along with the application, I would actually recommend that you consider using a video hosted on ARC's website, askarcnassau.com. It's about 6 minutes long, so that may be a more useful video to use while filling out your application than Nick's presentation, which, while absolutely helpful, may not be the best tool to fill out an application, as we are about an hour long at this time. So just a suggestion, but the ultimate answer is yes, this session is being recorded. Okay, so we had a concern about the sales locator and comparing the assessed values of the comparable sales. If you're looking at the sales locator and the sales locator is still only working in market value, US dollars, it's perfectly fine for you to compare the market value. You don't need to compare the assessed value. You'll ultimately need to know the assessed value to put into Part B of your application, but for the purposes of the sales locator, it's perfectly fine to compare your own home, which may be valued at $450,000, and look at 2 or 3 comparable sales that are all sold for $400,000 and conclude that those homes indicate that your property is overassessed. You don't necessarily need to do that conversion from market to assessed value in the sales locator itself. Okay, Nick Nick touched on this point a bit later in the presentation, but I think it's worth repeating and expanding on. There were some concerns about what gives one the best chance for success, going it on their own or hiring somebody to do it for them. I think Nick did a wonderful job explaining our process and our priorities, but I'll just go ahead and expand on that from my own perspective. When our appraisal teams are reviewing the valuation of a property, they don't know whether that application was filed by the property owner or by a representative. It's completely irrelevant to their process, and it's frankly unimportant. What they're looking for is market data, contextual information. So what's going to give somebody the most success is an application that makes the best case that their home is overassessed. Now, a representative that's experienced may be able to give a very compelling argument, but it is our opinion that no one knows your home like you do, and no one knows the contextual information like you do. And a applicant that files by themselves can absolutely be successful in securing a reduction if they can make a compelling case that their home is overassessed. That there's no magic bullet that a representative has that gives them an advantage over the property owner in this circumstance. They may very well have expertise that someone may find is worth compensating them for, but again, they're answering the same questions on the same form that Nick just explained for us all this morning. So we have not found a significant difference between success rates between people who file by themselves or people that use a company. If you can make a compelling case that your home is overassessed, the Assessment Review Commission will offer you a reduction on your appeal. All right, so more about ARC's process and timeline. How long after submitting a claim can we expect to wait before hearing a result? ARC's review period is a bit lengthy. It's about 14 months long. And at the very, very worst, you would hear from us on a final determination at the end of our review period, March 2022. But usually we begin issuing our first offers of settlement in any one review period during the late summer or early fall. However, you should not be surprised if it takes a little bit longer than that. ARC typically receives quite a few applications annually, and we do need to do our due diligence and review them before we can start issuing any of our results. Okay, so we have a question about if someone chooses not to use the sales locator, how does ARC review their application? So our appraisal teams do their own due diligence, do their own research, and arrive at a value. If you don't contribute to the conversation by making use of either the sales locator or Part D or some other resource to help make your case, you're basically removing yourself from the process. Now, that's a choice that you can make, but our appraisal team will do their due diligence, will do their research, and will come to a decision without you if you don't contribute to the application. So to the extent that you can contribute to the application, we'd absolutely recommend that you do. We would prefer to take your concerns into account and make that part of our research so we know what you know about the property. If you don't participate in the application, then our team will do their thing and they'll come to a determination, but that may increase the risk that you don't necessarily agree with the result. So to the extent that you can fill out the application, we certainly recommend that you do. Okay, so we have a couple of follow-up questions in regards to Part E and how to enter data from independent sources. So if you are aware of a sale that was not in the sales locator, you can enter that sale manually in Part E. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can just physically type in the property information, the section, block, and lot, and so on and so forth. If you don't want to do that, there's actually a button next to the blank field. It's a magnifying glass, similar to looking up your own property in the sales locator, you would click on that magnifying glass, enter the property information, and essentially hit enter. And that would fill in that information in Part E. And then there's a comments field for you to explain where you got the source from and what the property sold for. And that will allow our appraisal team to take that information and confirm that sale with their own independent research. Okay, I have another concern about if we don't use Sales Locator, how do you make a case? If you're not going to use Sales Locator, you can report sales from other sources like Zillow or something that a local realtor makes you aware of. You can also still make your case in Part D by letting us know about that contextual information that won't necessarily show up just by looking at market sales. Okay, this is an inventory concern. Someone is concerned that the Department of Assessment thinks that their garage is too big. In any circumstance where you have an inventory concern, it's our recommendation that you contact the Department of Assessment and make them aware of that. If they think that you have more amenities and fixtures than you actually do, that could very well lead to your property having an overassessment issue. So if you look at your property record information and you disagree with it, it's our recommendation you contact the Department of Assessment. If it's an internal feature, they will likely need to inspect the property to confirm the internal fixtures. If it's an external fixture that they can confirm by doing an exterior inspection, they should be able to do that for you as well. So we have a question about someone who is interested in perhaps using a representative, but can they still see the full appeal online? If you hire a representative, at that point, you have to communicate with them about your application. ARC cannot communicate directly with a represented party. So if you were to hire a firm and you wanted to see the work that they were doing for you, you would need to contact your representative and ask them about that. Okay. So this is a question about the number of comps to use on Sales Locator. If you have 5 sales that are making your case, should you go for more sales? At that point, probably not. If you have 5 sales, what we're looking at is the average sales price. And adding a 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th sale is not going to move the meter very much on an average sales price. If you can make your case within 5 sales, that's probably good enough. Okay, we have some questions about the Taxpayer Protection Plan. That's not something that the Assessment Review Commission is necessarily confident in teaching and explaining without inadvertently giving some misinformation. So I'm going to ask my friends behind the scenes to post in the Q&A a link to the Nassau County Department of Assessment's frequently asked questions page regarding the Taxpayer Protection Plan. If there are further questions about that, you would probably be better served directing them to the Department of Assessment. So this is a question about essentially what value to ask for in Part B of the application if you don't use Sales Locator. We can't really assist with that. We can't give direct guidance to someone about what value they should be asking for. What I would recommend is that you have to ask yourself the question, what would your home sell for at the beginning of January? And that value should probably guide what value you put in Part B. If you hire a firm to represent you, the firm is going to get the final determination. Again, ARC can't communicate directly with a represented party. A question here: Are sales submitted from the sales locator considered more credible to ARC than those sales that someone finds outside of the sales locator? Whether a sale is recorded in the sales locator or not is not an indication of whether that sale is good evidence of value. That's a determination that ARC's team has to make when performing the review. The sales locator is located from data from the Nassau County Clerk. So whenever somebody goes and records their sale closing with the Nassau County Clerk, that sale ultimately ends up in the sales locator. If it's a sale that's not necessarily a market sale, like a foreclosure sale, a sale between relatives, and inheritance, if it's an auction sale, there are sales that are recorded in the clerk's office, which are then ultimately passed to the sales locator that may not necessarily be market sales. And at the same time, there are sales that could be submitted outside of the sales locator that could have some of those same issues. So the answer is no. There's no greater weight assigned to properties located in the sales locator versus not. The answer is that our team has to review those sales and confirm that those sales are market sales as opposed to some other circumstance that's not necessarily good evidence of market value. Okay, we have a question about finding success at ARC and then disagreeing with the subsequent Department of Assessment publication. The Department of Assessment and the Assessment Review Commission are two separate entities. ARC can review the Department of Assessment's values if the property owner disagrees with that value, but ARC cannot dictate to the Department of Assessment what it does for the following year. Now, that being said, it's certainly my understanding that the Department of Assessment wants to take ARC's determinations into account when setting their next values. But again, there can be an issue with timing between the two agencies. The Department of Assessment has an obligation to publish their new value every January, and the Assessment Review Commission is working on those appeals until that March. So it can very well be the case that the Department of Assessment has to publish a value without the benefit of ARC's decision on that particular property for the previous year. It can be an unfortunate circumstance if that's what happens, but please realize that even if the Assessment Review Commission finds that the Department of Assessment overassessed a property in 1 year, we don't have the authority to dictate to them what to do in the next year. That is still their responsibility and their jurisdiction. Okay, we have a question here about looking at previous year's applications, possibly even previous year's applications that were filed on behalf of a applicant by a firm that they hired. If you're interested in looking at that, you might try to ask the firm first to get a copy of that application. If they are not cooperative in that, you can submit a FOIL request to the Assessment Review Commission for an application on your own property. Okay, so at this time, I think I got to all of the questions that I can assist with to the group. I see a couple of questions that I think would be better served if I followed up with them through private messaging. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to let Nick reiterate some features, including our video on the homepage and some general information. And Nick will take any new questions that come in while I'm trying to assist with a couple of more specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. So just like Jeremy mentioned, I will reiterate, if you go to ARC's homepage, which we have on the slide right now, www.askarcnassau.com, you will see that there is a 6-minute video right there on the homepage that is going to go over how to file using Sales Locator. Just the steps I did, except it's going to be much more concise. Also mentioned by Jeremy, we can also have this recording of our presentation available through the Legislator, and we'll work on that as well. If you have any other questions that you don't feel comfortable with in the Q&A, or you want to have more information, you can always contact ARC customer service, and you can call us 516-571-3214, or you can also send us an email, arc@nassaucountyny.gov. If you're looking for a receipt on a mailed-in stipulation or any other information, any other correspondence, you can also contact ARC and we can email you an attachment of whatever you're looking for. I see a question just came in asking, how do you find the application online? Well, if you're filing online, you would go to ARC's homepage, askarcnassau.com, and you would just click on arrow, and that's how you would file online. If you're referencing the paper application on that same homepage, askarcnassau.com, there is a tab on the left that you will see. It says Forms, and the form you're submitting to appeal your property's tentative 2223 value is the AR1. So if you're looking for the paper form, you would just click on Forms on the ARC homepage, and you would select the AR1.
Thank you, Nick. There is a link on our homepage to file a FOIL request. So if anyone is interested in perhaps reviewing an application that was filed on their behalf by a representative in a previous year, you can take care of that through our homepage, askarcnassau.com. But again, these are firms that worked on your behalf, so you may very well have success in getting the appeal that they filed for you from them. So if you were happy with their work, maybe they're more than happy to provide it to you. Okay. We have a little bit more time if any additional questions come in. If not, I hope that everyone found this presentation helpful. I hope that we answered your questions in an informative way. I want to thank Nick again for issuing a great presentation, our colleagues Rob and Mike, who are assisting us behind the scenes, and of course Legislator Birnbaum for inviting us to speak with you this morning.
I just want to thank you for the very informative presentation.
You're quite welcome. Thank you, Legislator. Okay. So not seeing too many new questions coming in, I'll just reiterate that if you think of something that you want to discuss with us after we end for the morning, you can reach out to us at our customer service line or send us an email at arc@nassaucountyny.gov. And I think we'll give it till 11:40 for any further questions before we go ahead and close out for the day and bid everyone a good holiday weekend. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Again, I hope that we were able to help you this morning. If you think of anything that you want to discuss with us after the fact, our information is up on the live screen, and have a wonderful holiday weekend.